We're back in the garden this morning. And today we are going to pick another favorite of mine. Peppers. Primarily, we're going to be doing, if I can find these guys, right down here, green peppers. What I really like with these and here's some more peppers right here, is chili rellenos. I hope I didn't butcher that name too bad. But we have lots of peppers here, different sizes. Some of these over here are a little bit too small still. But let's see what else we got down here. We got some good sized ones down there that are hiding that we're going to go ahead and pick. So these chili peppers are one of the more mild of the hot pepper family. The Latin name is Solina, I believe it is, and basically it's part of the nightshade family. Now, generally speaking, nightshade is a poisonous plant, but this is the family of nightshade, which also includes, peppers, tomatoes, potatoes, and eggplants are all part of the nightshade family. Our peppers are normally planted inside our house in February, and we take them out around the first or second week of May to put into our garden. Basically, we put them into the garden once any frost danger has passed. Now, I'm kind of risking myself doing this, picking these by hand, because there's a chemical called, I believe it's called Caspian. Anything that's liquidy off this plant, you can maybe see it coming off my fingers. If I were to wipe my eyes right now, I would be in a world of hurt. It's the same oil that comes out of these pepper plants that they make pepper spray with. And I've never been sprayed with pepper spray, but it can hurt. So we had a pretty good amount picking it. I have one little lone tomato down in there. One of the things with chili peppers, we normally pick them when they're green. Some people will wait until they're red in color, but if you wait too long, chili peppers will go from green to red, but if you wait too long, the seeds inside will mature. And if the seeds mature, then the plant will stop producing. So it's important to pick these constantly, because the more you pick from your plants, the more they will produce, because the whole point in a plant giving off fruit is to reproduce. And so once the seeds are set, once the seeds are mature, the plant has done its job and will stop producing. Generally with green peppers, when they're fresh, like I said, we'll cut these open, take out the seeds, make like chili rellenos or other dishes. I've tried freeze drying green peppers whole to use in the future, but through the freeze drying process, they become so brittle that they just basically shatter and break up while they're in the bag. So if I really wanted to keep green peppers in like freeze dry, I probably would have to put these into a glass mason jar to protect them from breaking. Now, we do pretty well with our garden. One of the problems with the garden where we have is we're kind of down in a minor little valley. You can kind of see where the hills kind of go up and around, but so we're kind of down in this little valley area, and when it gets cold, the cold air will settle down in this area. So my garden is usually going to be about 3 or 5 degrees cooler than where my house is. The soil we have here is very alkali, and so what we've do each year to try to help things out, and it has really helped a lot, is we will add aluminum sulfate to our soil. And this is made by High Yield. Because of the pandemic, normally we buy aluminum sulfate in larger bags, but this year that's the only way we could find it. So we amend the soil with aluminum sulfate, and then there's a horse property we have close by that has horse manure and sawdust that we put into our beds every year and till it in. So we've worked a lot on this soil to make it productive, and we get a pretty good yield. The first thing we're going to do, as with all produce, is we're going to give it a good washing, just to remove any dirt, bugs, anything else that might have been on our peppers here. One thing I've talked about in past videos, we talked about botulism, and botulism is basically a soil-based bacterium. And so anything that grows close to the soil or comes out of the soil, you really want to make sure you rinse it well. And when it comes to insects, well, we don't want to intentionally eat insects, but you'd be surprised on how many insects we eat in a year's time. I think they calculated that in a year's time we eat actually 2 quarts of insects one way or another, but I don't want to end up turning everybody's stomach, but insects are a part of life. Okay, next step. So as we discussed, these are green chilies. If I were to leave these on the vine a little bit longer, they'd become a red color. But like I said, you have to be careful not to leave them on the vine too long, because if the seeds mature, they'll set and they won't produce anymore. But if you do pick them red, there's a couple of things you can do with chili peppers. And for example, we have chili powder. Now, chili powder is ground up chili peppers with a few other spices and other things added into it for flavor. Another thing we have are crushed red peppers. So these are chilies that have gone on the red side, and they're not ground so fine, but they're crushed up because you can still see the seeds in here. And so in addition to cooking, you can also make your own chili powder and crushed red peppers from your produce. So when cleaning chili peppers, you just basically want to cut off the top. The top is really not good for anything. And I generally will cut off the bit on the very tip because it's just so thick. And then I'll just cut these right down the middle and open these up, and then I'll just take the back end of my knife and just kind of scrape out all the seeds. Now, what seeds I can't get to, I'll have a bowl of cold water over here that I'll just kind of rinse these off to rinse out any seeds and put them into another bowl. Now, one other thing you need to remember as you're doing this, if you get an itch on your nose or an itchy eyes or anything like that, you do not want to scratch, because with the oils in chili peppers, if you get this oil inside your eyes or on your nose, it's going to sting like the dickens. And you don't always need to use a knife. If you want, just use your fingers and get all the seeds out that way. But just remember that that oil is going to be really hot. So if you're going to use your fingers, just remember not to touch your eyes. Sometimes I'll actually wear gloves if you have them. There's an alternative method to taking care of your chilies, and that is going to be on the grill. If you roast them, that will give you a whole another flavor and possibilities of what to do. So you can roast these until they just barely start going black or cooked. And then what we want to do, we want to take the chilies and put them into a bag and let them kind of sweat. And after that, we can take the skin off. And once the outside skin is out, then we can open them up and take out the seeds. So you want to blacken these as much as you can without incinerating them. So there's a fine line on how much you want to cook these. But once they're cooked, then what we want to do, we want to go ahead and put them in a bag and let them sweat it out. And then we're going to remove the outside peel. It's kind of hard to do this with just one hand here. Okay, so there we go. They're in our bag. And we're going to leave them in here about 10 minutes. It's been about 10 minutes, so these are our roasted chilies, and these are almost like skinning the fish, if that makes any sense. So we're going to cut off the ends, and we're going to grab it by the tail, and we're just going to have a flat blade knife, and you can see how that skin on the chili just kind of comes off. So we're just going to kind of scrape the outside of the chili, flip it over, and scrape that. Like I said, it's like cleaning the fish. Got some seeds on there. Takes a little bit more work, but the taste is going to be well worth it. So this is a roasted chili versus the fresh chili. Okay, so what we're going to do here, take off a piece here. The best way I can describe this, a little bit of heat, but it's you can taste the greenness. I can't put it into words. So let's try this one here. This is warm, more mellow, so to speak. But there's two definite different tastes between the roasted chilies and the green chili. These we're just going to chop up and freeze dry, but we're going to do the same thing with these, but we're going to make sure we separate it because right now they're two different animals. Now going back to the roasted chili, you can either cut it on the edge, or if you're really good, you can just cut it right down the center, because this thing still has seeds in it, so that we need to open this up and just kind of squeeze out any of the seeds inside. Well, that one kind of came a little bit stringy. So what we're going to end up having are these long little fillets, so to speak. Okay, so all the seeds are out of these. We're going to rinse them, make sure we get all the seeds off. And I'll just lay them in the freeze-dried trays, just like a fish fillet. So I'll go through and finish all of these, and we'll go ahead and put them in the freezer and pre-freeze them. A lot of times, if these are done just right, as you're taking off the outside skin, you're basically you're like making a squeegee action, and you can see where all the seeds are just being kind of squeezed out of the chili. So when you end up going to open these up, a lot of times, we can see, a lot of times the seeds will either be already out or almost out, like that. So, roasted chilies. They're delicious. We're back to the regular peppers. We finished up the roasted ones, and we're just going to basically dice these up. And put them on a tray. Okay, these are all chopped up, ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and put these in the tray, and I have to continually remind myself not to touch my face with all the stuff. So these are the regular ones, and we're going to take these are the roasted peppers, and we're just going to put those down on this end. I guess I could chop these up, but I want to have them in whole pieces just in case I want to dress a particular dish when I end up cooking these. And we're just going to kind of lay them on top of each other. There's really no reason not to, because these will separate just fine once they're all cooked. And I have more of this in the garden, so I'll probably just kind of put these aside once they're done and package them all together. So that's tray number one for the peppers. We're going to go ahead and put this in the freezer. And lastly, when you get done, don't think that your hands are okay. You really need to scrub your hands with soap and water when you're done, because you have that capsaicin oil on your fingers, and if you touch your eyes, oh, you're going to know how bad it is. So wash your hands thoroughly after you get done with the chilies. And I did right on here, these are chili peppers. I don't know if I referred to these as green peppers. I hope I didn't, because green peppers and chili peppers are two different animals. And what I'm doing, I'm just kind of keeping track, because if you pre-freeze your food before you put it in your freeze dryer, you can end up removing up to 4 to 5% of moisture just in the freezing process. So this is 1,180 grams of chili peppers. So into the freezer it goes. Okay, our peppers are finished up. These are the diced peppers. They came out really nice. And these are some of the peppers that I roasted. They're thin, kind of look like corn stalks. But those came out really good too. So these will go ahead, these will be packaged up and be used in the future for food.